Welcome to the January 20th, 2021 Police Commission meeting for the City of Burbank. That's on. I'd like to call this meeting to order and roll call.
Commissioner Chapman,
Here.
Commissioner Cohen,
Here.
Commissioner Elman,
Here.
Chair Kobaisi,
Here.
and Commissioner Vest is absent.
Everyone in the chamber, would you please rise for the flag salute? Place your right hand over your heart. Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, the public comment period will be upcoming in a few minutes. To speak during that period, please call 818-238-3335. City staff will answer the phones and announce the speakers in real time to the chair when the public comment period begins. Again, that number is 818-238-3335. We'll begin with commission announcements and reporting out by commission subcommittees. Do we have any announcements or by any of the commissioners? None? Seeing none, then, did I see one? No. We'll go to oral communications. No calls yet. Shall we continue? If we get some calls, we'll come back to them. Okay, then. We will go then to item F, approval of the minutes from November 18, 2020. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second? Commissioner Cohen, and then seconded by Commissioner Elman. All in favor? All in favor? Okay. Consensus? It's your call? Okay, we have a call, so we will wait to take it before continuing.
Layla, you're on live with the Police Commission. Go ahead with your comment.
Hi, my name is Layla, and I'm just calling tonight in anticipation of the discussion of this Commission's recommendations for City Council. And I want to again urge you to revisit the recommendation around the diversity of this Commission. Certain groups have been excluded from power and decision-making, both explicitly and implicitly, for hundreds of years in this country, and we're not going to change that by being colorblind or any other kind of blind to the long-standing divides that exist, and worrying about the possibility of, discouraging or excluding those who have always had access and opportunity to those levers of power and decision-making. In addition, we need a diversity of backgrounds to tackle the intersectional issues around community safety. For example, we could use a person who's a service provider to those experiencing homelessness or people returning to our community after incarceration. We need somebody who has personally been impacted on the receiving end by the criminal justice system themselves or their family. We don't need current law enforcement officers on the Commission. This is a conflict of interest. We need a diversity of experiences, professional and individual, diversity of thought, and I strongly encourage you to reconsider the recommendation around the Commission and diversity. I find the recommendation that's at least in the draft to be completely out of touch. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other callers? Okay, we have another caller.
Thanks.
Linda, you're live. You can go ahead with your comment.
Thank you. Good evening, Commission members and Councilmember Schultz and Mayor Frutos. I'm calling because I had called in on the July 14th joint meeting between the Commission and City Council, and I had read through the police manual and had several comments that I want to revisit, especially in light of current events. Chapter 3, under Standards of Conduct, I strongly feel that there should be an amendment there that says that officers, current law enforcement members of Burbank Police Department should not belong to or associate with members of white supremacy groups or right-wing militias. I think that's very, very important because of so many law enforcement officers that unfortunately were involved in the January 6th insurrection. Officers from around the country, and I understand that none from Burbank were involved, and I'm so grateful for that. But I think we need to look around and realize what's happening in our country. Another policy regarding community conduct. Officers are encouraged to establish contact with persons and groups within the community who are likely targets of hate crimes and to form and cooperate with prevention and response networks. So I don't think that's been done. There's something in your agenda for tonight that talks about partnerships with community-based organizations, and they say no community-based organizations responded to your invitation. That should speak volumes. If no community group wants to associate with you, then that means the onus is on you to reach out to them and to really go out into the community and make an effort to talk to people, to really find out what residents' experiences are and what they think about policing in Burbank. So I just want to make sure that you understand that. The other thing is, I see you have a recommendation for Law Enforcement Recognition Day. I'm very disappointed that our police department and city did not recognize the law enforcement officers who were injured and who lost their lives on January 6th in our nation's capital. I think that really should have been done. So those are my comments for tonight, and thank you so much for this time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other callers? We have another call.
Okay.
Jean, go ahead with your comment.
Hi, my name is Gene, and I just want to be mindful of the fact that we have to be very careful, because I think, particularly when it comes to unions or the police union, what happened in Los Angeles just a few months ago is that the union directors decided that they wanted to have a fund of $10 million so they could campaign for the people they want and against the people they don't want, and to lobby. And, they got way ahead of their membership, because their membership said no. The rank and file said, no, you have gone too far. You're not taking $10 million. You're not assessing my paycheck. And I think we have to be mindful. They're the tail that wags the dog. And that's my message, is that sometimes they just overstep, and they overstep their members, and they step on a lot of other things, and we have to be careful. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your call. Any other callers? Okay. Seeing no other callers, we'll move on to item G. Yep.
Respond briefly?
Yes,
So in
sir. And I'll give the opportunity to other members to also respond. Go ahead, Chief.
I just wanted to respond to the second caller relative to hate crime, because there was a comment made that we need to reach out and people that may not agree with us just because they're not coming forward. And I'd like to point out that you, as the chair, have reached out to different groups, whether it was with the schools or the Black Lives Matter. So we're looking for all points of view, and I think there has been more than an adequate effort by this commission and others to reach out, to have people come here to report their concerns and to articulate anything else that in respect to change. The other item I'd like to talk about was just briefly, we had a representative of the Burbank Human Relations Council here in respect to hate crime. That is an organization with whom we work very closely, and I think that was pointed out more than adequately on that evening. Thank you.
Okay, my apologies to the commissioners. When we skipped here, I went out of step here. So I want to give the commissioners an opportunity to respond briefly to any of the public comments. Anybody? Commissioner Cohen.
Yeah, I just want to say I appreciate the calls coming in, but most of this stuff is not up to us who sits on this commission. People should apply if they want to come on the commission. City council appoints them. We don't do any of the picking. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other commissioners? I'll Commissioner Chapman. Commissioner Chapman, we can't hear you.
Better? Okay, thank you. I have, with the first caller, I have taken the position that we should suggest that we expand our commission to include more people and to diversify. That was not an indicator to suggest that it be only because a person's heritage or racial makeup or whatever. It was to expand, to give more opportunity to expand our diversity. There was another point that was taken that our partnership with BHRC, and it's important that people know that our police department partnerships with a number of different groups, FSA and other organizations, for example. I just wanted to make sure that it doesn't appear that our department is not doing its forbearance and trying to communicate with the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Chapman. Any other? Okay, I'll briefly make my comments with regards to the first caller and the diversity. I agree with Commissioner Chapman that they should increase the membership back to 7. My position on it, though, is that it's not our job because the City Council reduced it to 5. So that's something they should come up with whether they want to increase it. As far as diversity is concerned on there, as Commissioner Cohen said, you just have to apply. If you apply, all of that's available online. You can see the diversity in backgrounds of people by checking out the applications. And I wish that some of the people that are bringing this issue up would go back in time and find out how many people apply for boards and commissions and to see the pool that the council has to pick from. And so again, if you want more diversity, it's incumbent upon us as community members to put in applications for the various boards and commissions. I think that's it. The rest is everybody already touched on. So with no further comments, we'll go to the next item, which is item G, items of business review. Item number 1 is review, discussion, and modification of the draft report of the Commission's recommendations to the City Council to be presented at the February joint meeting. So I'm kind of looking at this. All the commissioners, I think you have copies of the draft. So if anyone has any suggestions or anything substantive other than grammar. If you have any grammar issues, you can email Sherry directly later. But for the substance of the document, now's the time to bring it up. Anyone want to start? Commissioner Chapman? You're on mute. Hey, there you go.
There we go. Thank you, Chair. Mr. Chairman. I think you did a fine job of putting this draft together and appreciate the hard work that you put into it. I wanted to ask, there was on page 5 some additional topics evaluated. Would that be included in the report as well?
Let me take a look here. Page 5. Commissioner, are you referring to, let's say, like, the items that, like tracking recommendations of the office, OIR, something like that we actually didn't end up reviewing, all those that are under additional topics evaluated? Those are part of the document, so those would be included in this.
All right. Then I'd like to bring up maybe 2 things. One is on the 4th item, partnerships with community-based organizations. And my only concern about that is that we did have BHRC make a presentation, and it says that no group were responded. It just might be a consideration. We may either want to take that out or change the wording a little bit. Then the other item that I have as a concern is the size of the commission, the first one, and the last sentence on it. And it mentions that the commission has no control over the determination of the number of members, and therefore no recommendation is submitted. I agree that we do not have any control over it. However, I don't want to give the impression that we can't make recommendations, and we should be able to. I suggest that maybe we change the wording on that last sentence to that the commission has made no recommendations to be submitted at this time.
We're all taking notes on this, so.
Okay. That's it for me.
That's
Chair.
it for you? Okay.
Yeah.
Any other commissioners with any suggestions for modifications? Commissioner Cohen?
I think you did a fine job. It covered everything we talked about and considered, and I think we should send it up the pipe.
Okay. I have one, and I think I'm looking at the SRO for recommendation number 1. I'm trying to find it. I had it marked and I printed out a blank one here. So there's a part where it says that we send out a letter and to the school staff and students and board and employees. And it says that there were no items that were reported back negative about the program. But I wanted to clear up that the letter that was sent out was asking for Burbank-specific issues, because we did get a lot of comments about things that were happening outside of Burbank. So I'm trying to find that. It says it up to Burbank-specific in the top, but then again it repeats it. So maybe it's already been fixed. Maybe this is the newer one, and I was looking at an earlier draft, but it's already been fixed in this one. Okay, so then I have none. I would agree with Commissioner Chapman's recommendations to include BHRC in that, as well as the commission size. So I don't know, do we need to take a vote on it, or are there any, is anyone who doesn't approve of the changes suggested by Commissioner Chapman? Commissioner Elman?
concerning the size, I thought we already came to an agreement in the last meeting of what the size should be. And I remember I asked a question in that last meeting that really never was answered, that I came onto this commission when it's only been 5 members. All of you have served on commissions with 7 members. Can you tell me what the advantage of having the 7 members back then compared to now is? You've had 7 already.
I personally, I just give you my opinion. With 7, it was just 2 additional voices, 2 additional opportunities to share information. There is some, there's the people that say the more the merrier. Sometimes there's too much. I think in some cases, the commission, when it's at the 7 members, I think there were some that were requesting too much or information that wasn't really police commission related or information they can get on their own. I don't mind having a 7-member body. I just think that they need to be more focused on police commission business, directly as to what's outlined in the charter for us to do and what's, given to us to do by the council, not to go on. Actually, so we are more policy oriented. I enjoyed having 7, hearing other people's voices. I also think personally that for the diversity case, having 7 means that you have a bigger pool to fill. But we voted on it. So to answer your question, that's just my personal opinion, but we voted to keep it. What it is, my suggestion on Commissioner Chapman is that we agree that we don't have the authority to do it, but he's suggesting that we just remove, let's see, where is it? Part of the last, it says, therefore, no recommendation is submitted. So we actually did recommend. So we're just gonna, he's saying that let's modify that to reflect what we did, that we kept it the same. We kept it at 5. Because that was our recommendation. Is that wrong?
Yeah, you voted on number and makeup, and you said no recommendation on the number.
Okay, so we made no recommendation on the number at all? Or we didn't, we said keep it as it is? Miss O, do you recall by any chance?
My recollection is that the commissioners were, how shall I say, somewhat upset that council had made that decision really without talking to the commissioners, and you didn't have a recommendation one way or the other. My recollection is that the conversation revolved around letting the council decide, since they took the number down from 7 to 5, then it should be up to them if they want to decide to raise the number back to 7, and that there was no consensus on a recommendation.
Commissioner Chapman, I'm pretty sure that we had a comment on there about saying that we wanted to keep this part of that process in the hands of the council. Did that end up being our recommendation that we keep? I mean, is it reflected in here to say that we're, saying that this is the responsibility of the council? Or did we make no recommendation at all as far as that's concerned? Commissioner Cohen?
My recollection is that's exactly what we did. We decided that it's council business. They took us from 7 to 5. They changed our meeting schedule from monthly to quarterly until all this business started happening, and then it was back to monthly. That's their prerogative. And I think that's what we talked about, and we were going to let them decide.
I thought that too. So I think our recommendation was made to have the council be the one to make the decision, or no?
We can amend this is a draft of your recommendation. So if that is what the commission wants to recommend, certainly those changes can be made before anything is finalized and sent to council.
Well, if we voted on it, I just want to be accurate to reflect what we voted on, but.
Yeah, you said you wanted to expand it to 7, and everyone said no, there's no recommendation, you just voted against 1, 4, and the rest
I see. So are we saying that you want to change that right now? Ms. O, is that what you're saying, that we could change that right now, or?
The item is agendized, and I was looking at it because of the discussion. Let me just pull up the agenda here. Oh, too many open windows. The item is agendized as review, discuss, and modify the draft report. So as part of reviewing, discussing, and modifying the draft report of the commission's recommendations, if the recommendations as it's currently written does not accurately reflect what you intended, you can certainly amend it now. And if it's the consensus of the commission, and it's clearly the consensus of the commission, we can go ahead and make that change. If you want to have everybody who's here vote, again, you could do that as well, just to make it, extra clear. But it sounds like, unless Commissioner Chapman or Commissioner Elman have a differing opinion, it sounds like, based upon Mr. Cohen's recollection and your recollection, that certainly the intent was the recommendation should be to state to council that they need to decide on the number. So however you would like to proceed, Chair Kobayashi.
So do you, thank you, Ms. O. Commissioner Chapman and Elman, do you agree with that statement? That we recommended to the council for them to make that determination?
That's what I thought we voted on last meeting, and that's what I voted for. And my mind has not changed.
Okay, and Commissioner Chapman, you still feel the same?
I think, Commissioner, why don't we just, from what we just said there, why don't we take a quick vote just to reconfirm?
Do you want to phrase it then the way, or do you want me to do it?
Please go ahead, using Mr. Elman's suggestion as well.
Okay, so if I miss anybody, let me know. So we'd like to rephrase it to indicate that our recommendation as the police commission is that the city council that reduced the number to 5, it's their responsibility to decide whether or not to increase it back to 7. Did I capture that correctly, Commissioner Elman? I see a yes from 2 commissioners. Commissioner Chapman?
I'm good with it.
Okay, so then let's take a quick vote on that. Is there a first? I see a first from Commissioner Chapman. A second, was that you, Commissioner Cohen? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Everybody's in favor. It's unanimous. Okay, then. That change will be made.
So Chair Kobayashi, just to confirm, that will be added on as a recommendation number 6.
Correct. Then that will change to a recommendation. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay. Any other recommendations, any other changes to the document? This will be our time. Okay.
Mr. Chapman had some tweaks to the draft. Is everybody in agreement as to the little edits that Mr. Chapman put forth earlier? I didn't hear whether there was no consensus.
The ones that he spoke to earlier today?
Correct.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty agreed upon. Anyone have any objections to them? I see none, so yeah, that would be consensus on that.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Okay, now the question is, do we wait or do we vote on it with the modification to approve it? Ms. O.
Well, one thing that we can do if the rest of the commissioners are in agreement is that once we make these changes, we can just present it to you, Chair Kobayashi, for you to give the final stamp of approval before we move it along to council, rather than holding it back to the joint meeting in February. I believe you have a joint meeting coming up in February, so it would be good if the council could have your recommendations prior to the meeting. So my recommendation would be to just have Sherry and Courtney Padgett, who worked on this draft, to present it to you, Chair Kobayashi, for your final stamp of approval, and then go ahead and forward it to council ahead of the joint meeting.
Is that okay with the rest of the commission? Any issues
I
with
move
that?
that we do exactly what Ms. O said. If we need a vote on it, whatever, but I would move that we do that.
Well, we have a motion then and a second from Commissioner Chapman. All in favor? It's unanimous. Okay, then we'll do that. So, having that done, let's take a vote on the document as it is pending that last bit of modifications. So, do we have a motion to approve the document as presented with the modifications discussed today?
So moved.
We have a first from Commissioner Cohen and a second from Commissioner Chapman. All in favor? Okay, that's unanimous. Okay, thank you. That part is complete. Our next item of business is the general announcements by the police chief. Chief?
Okay, thank you. I'd like to briefly recap last year so that the public knows. Part 1 crime, which is all of our major crime, was down 7.2%. What's notable about that is that robberies were down 9.3%, thefts were down, aggravated assaults were down almost 9% as well. Part 2 crimes, which are the less serious and most of them classified as misdemeanors, were down almost 20%. Also, traffic accidents were down 30% this past year, 2020. What we're very proud of is our response times to the emergency calls, which was just over 3 minutes, which is a very good response time when you look at police and fire departments. For all calls, we're running at about 14 minutes and 30 seconds, which is another great record for us. Year to date, we've had a spike in crime, particularly violent crime, like many other departments. It's too early to predict where we're going with that, but we're aware of it. We're deploying because of that. One of the property crimes that's come to our attention that's very significant in this city are catalytic converters. So they're getting stolen off of cars parked on streets and carport, subterranean garages. So what we need to do is make sure that we properly secure our vehicles and, again, get a hold of our PIO. If you want to bring somebody into your neighborhood via Zoom or WebEx, we can do that to talk about how to prevent crime. But it's all about education at this point, and we are a safe city, but you can never exercise too much safety, so that's of concern to us. Inauguration Day is today. We've been deployed for the past couple of days in anticipation of possible issues. Very happy to report that nothing happened in the city of Burbank and our region. Again, very happy to report that there were no occurrences. So this is hopefully a harbinger of things to come, that we've learned to get along with one another and discuss things. But again, today we were prepared. We brought extra bodies in and put uniforms on basically everybody in the department, and we're prepared if something were to occur. That did not occur. The other item I'd like to talk about very briefly is I volunteered to be on a subcommittee for the City Council. It's called Racial Equality and Diversity Subcommittee. It's comprised of various members from the City Attorney's Office, the City Manager's Office, and department heads. There are two council members, Mayor Frutos and Council Member Springer, that are a part of that committee. And it looks like we're going to have our first meeting next month. So I know that some of the issues we're going to deal with on that subcommittee have direct applicability to the police department and to this commission. So I will continue to report out on items like that. And that's all I have to report tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief. Okay, moving on. Introduction of agenda items for future meetings. Before we do that, I just wanted to remind everybody that we, when we were tasked with the coming up with these recommendations, we had a whole bunch of items that we put on a list to go through, and that we may not have gotten to all of them. We tried to pick what we thought was the most important that needed to be dealt with right away before the time that we present to council. That doesn't mean that the rest of those items just fall off the shelf somewhere. We're going to try to keep taking up those items on future agenda that we have, future agendas over the next few months. So we don't necessarily have to re-add them. I think we're just going to keep that list open and go through them. But if you have any other new additional items you'd like to add, now would be the time. Commissioner Elman.
I would like to have a review that we're a year into this pandemic, and I would like to have what the challenges over the past year were for the police department. What were the learnings? What were the key results? What processes will we never go back to? What did we learn through this? Just a review, and I always think that in situations like this, there's always key learnings, and I'm just wondering what we're going to come out of this with. Thank you.
Okay, so we'd have the rest of the commission to vote on that. Before we vote, let me just ask the chief, is that something that you'd be prepared to do sometime in the future, or are you waiting for this pandemic to pass?
No, we can report out at any time on that. So let me describe for the public's benefit how we handle these items. And that is that whenever we have any type of major activity, we will conduct what's called an after-action review and write an after-action report. So we critically review our performance, the strengths and weaknesses, and make proposals in the future to avoid the pitfalls and to accentuate the positives. This particular item, the pandemic, has gone on for a prolonged period of time, so we have not done a full after-action review, but what we can do is for your benefit, the public's benefit, is give you a to-date report card on how we've performed and what we have learned.
Okay, with that then, can we accept for the commission to vote on as a motion, Mr. Elman, for a review of the pandemic effect to the police department?
That is correct.
Do we have a second? Mike Chapman? Okay, and all in favor? Motion passes. Okay, any other items of new business to be added to our list? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move to the next item, which is next meeting date. The next meeting date is Tuesday, February 9th, 2021. That would be the joint meeting with the City Council. And since we're on the topic of meetings, we don't have any meetings scheduled after that. So I think it might be appropriate for us to discuss the meetings that would happen after that. I don't know if Ms. O is still on. There she is.
Yes.
If we should just go ahead and schedule the rest of the meetings. I mean, the City Council had put us back on meeting monthly to make this report. Now the report is complete. I don't know if the intention is to go back to quarterly or if we continue meeting monthly, and whose decision that is to make.
I am uncertain as well, and so cannot give you a definitive answer tonight. One thing we may want to do is bring that up at the joint meeting, because at this point, my understanding was that, as you stated, Chair Koibayashi, that council made monthly meetings in anticipation of this report. I don't know what their intent was thereafter, and so it could be certainly something that we ask of council at the joint meeting. Or we can, you can direct staff to ask the city manager's office how they'd like to proceed ahead of the February meeting. But I don't want to second guess whatever council's intent was. So at this point, I'm not sure what kind of good direction I can give you regarding this topic.
Okay, so the chief is indicating.
Yeah,
he has something to
Mr.
say
Chair,
about it.
I would recommend to you that we do meet in February. There are still items that we can and probably should address. And in keeping with your previous statement that this is a work in progress, I think there are significant issues that you as a body can continue to tackle and provide direction to us.
Okay, so then let's,
Well, we already have a meeting scheduled for February. It's the joint meeting, as you stated, on February 9th. So I believe the question was, what do we do thereafter? Normally, we set the next meeting at the current meeting. And so since we already have a date of February 9th set, we don't have to set a date tonight. We already have the date for February. And then at the February meeting, we can get more direction as to whether council wants us to meet monthly or go back to a quarterly. And we also have 2 members of our council listening in, so they are already put on notice that this is a question that the commission has.
okay, my concern with that is that if we meet in February, it's possible, I guess, if we met in February, that we'd be able to identify a March meeting. But if we ended up going to quarterly, I wanted to be able to make sure we hit the quarterly, time slots for the rest of the year. So I think March would be February is like the deadline to get that answer. So would we hopefully be able to get an answer on that in February?
Why don't we pick a March date now, and then if they okay it, we're set, and if they don't, so be it.
So our pattern of meeting is the third Wednesday of every month, or in this case, perhaps every other month, unless there's some type of a conflict. So I would recommend we keep with that pattern. But I still maintain that there are items that we could address if you were so inclined to have a meeting on the third Wednesday in February.
Okay, so why don't we do this? Why don't we schedule a February meeting for the third Wednesday? And if the council decides at the 9th meeting, or that, whatever decision they make is what decision they make. But that way we'll have something for February. And if they decide that that's not what they want, we can reschedule at the time. Is that okay with the rest of the commission? That we schedule for the third Wednesday in February?
I don't think I can make 2 meetings in February.
Okay.
I've got some things that got to be on one week or the other week.
Okay. You could still weigh in on whether you want it, and if we don't have a quorum, we don't have a quorum. So would you approve it or not?
I would not approve a second meeting in February.
Okay, Commissioner Elman? How do you feel?
I'm available. I'll just go with everybody else, but works.
Okay. There's 3 of us. That's a quorum, right?
Yes.
So let's just do that then. I have 3 by consensus. Do we need to take a vote on it, Sherry? For February, do we need to take a vote on it, Gina?
You probably should, because you have one no vote.
Okay, so let's take a vote then on having a meeting scheduled for the third Wednesday in February. What's the third? The 17th of February.
You want to go around the horn?
Yeah, let's go. Let's roll call on that one.
Okay, Commissioner Cohen, yes or no?
No,
Commissioner Chapman?
Yes.
Commissioner Elman?
Yes.
Commissioner Chair Kobaisi?
Yes.
Sherry, one thing, if you could also just let PIO know so that they will save that third Wednesday of every month, since scheduling the council chambers and PIO staff is logistically one of the more difficult things about monthly meetings. So if you can have them prepare for that, just in case council does say meet monthly, that would be helpful.
Got
Thank
it. Thank
you.
you.
Just to clarify, it's a placeholder, so after the 9th meeting, it may not happen anyway, or it may, but we're going to be ahead of it and see what we can do here. So, with that said, then, that is it. The next meeting is the joint meeting at February 9th. Let's adjourn.
Can I make one
Wait,
other
before
statement,
we adjourn,
please?
Chief, one more thing.
Yes, I know there's a degree of uncertainty of whether or not we're going to meet next month, but let me just assure the public that we are about communications and transparency. And if you have an issue that needs to be discussed or brought to our attention, you don't need to wait for a commission meeting, but you can get a hold of us via email, by telephone, which is 818-238-3200. But I have found in my professional life that as soon as we find out about issues that need to be addressed, the better off we are. So don't be restrained from immediately asking for an audience with me or bringing something to the attention of the police department, because we're here to solve problems as quickly as possible.
Thank you, Chief. Yes, and that's, the chief has said it on numerous occasions. There's an open door. Anybody who wants, have a suggestion, has a problem, contact the police department. Their email, their website has the ability to contact them that way too. You can also send an email to, I think it's pcommission@burbank.ca.gov. You can hit everybody, but don't wait for these meetings to do it. It's better to just, if you have a problem, reach out and someone will try to assist you. And the police department is very good at responding quickly to those types of calls. So with that then, let's adjourn until the next meeting. Meeting adjourned.